please. So why are we here today? We all know that Wikimedia 2023 will be hosted by the ECF region, and in connection with this, scholarships will be open to affiliates who are supported by the General Support Fund of the WMF. We hope that Wikimedians across the region can access this support and be part of the Wikimania 2023. Also, we would want to learn how to build criteria for selecting participants who will be awarded with these scholarships, while keeping in mind the values of inclusivity and equity. We would also like to share the access to toolkits and templates that you can also utilize during the selection process. So next slide, please, Jessica. After my introduction, there will be a short icebreaker, and our invited speakers will also share tips and good practices for global events and the scholarship selection process. And at the end of this session, there will be a space for everyone to ask questions and get clarification on the discussed topics. And for our speakers today, let me introduce to you Han from the Community Resources team of WMF. Prue and Nangara from Wikimedia Australia would also share their group's learning and practices, those that both work and didn't work. And for the quick icebreaker, let me call Jacqueline. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us on Sunday. So to kick us off, we are proposing like a short icebreaker. And as part of the icebreaker, we would like to invite you to share your name, which Wikimedia community you are connected to, if that's applicable, and where you are connecting from. So 2 questions, right? So that's the first question. The second question to answer is, if you could hang out with any cartoon character, who would you choose and why? So we're going to just do like a popcorn style, meaning like we're not going to call on anyone. Whoever is ready can just speak. And then if once we hit like 15 past the hour, we'll just move on to the next section. So I'm just going to open the floor and see if we have any brave souls who would like to go first.
Oh, look, I'm happy to open it up for you. I'm Nangara, and I'm from Perth in Western Australia, and cartoon character would be Scooby-Doo. And why? Scooby Snacks.
Okay, maybe I'll go next. I'm Jacqueline. I am the East Southeast Asia Program Officer with the Wikimedia Foundation, and I'm connecting from Singapore. So if I could hang out with a cartoon character, I think that would be Cookie Monster from Sesame Street. Why Cookie Monster? I don't know, I'm always very fascinated with Cookie Monster. And when I was in school, I used to like eat. When I was in university, I used to pack my classes very closely. So I wouldn't have time for lunch. And then I would bring like snacks into like my tutorial halls. And then my teachers will always call me Cookie Monster because I'm constantly like snacking while during class. So yes, I will want to meet Cookie Monster.
I'm happy to go next. So I'm Alex. I'm on the Wikimedia Australia. I'm in Melbourne, Australia. Cartoon character, I'm thinking Garfield, because a lazy cat who likes lasagna, and I like lazing around and eating lasagna. So.
Hi, Robert here. I'm from Singapore, connecting from Singapore as well. Cartoon character that would like to hang out with would probably be Doraemon. Primarily because friends always known me as one who carries stuff that they need.
Hi everyone, my name is Rahmat from Wikimedia Indonesia. My cartoon character is Kero, Cerberus from Cardcaptor Sakura. I think that was my childhood cartoon. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Johnny Alegre. I'm from the Filipinos Panorama community. We're a startup group focusing on intellectual property rights and copyright. Anyway, but the animated character I could identify with would be Professor X of the X-Men. He doesn't have any physical powers, but he's a teacher, and he is also telepathic. That's it.
Hello, this is Dennis from Wikimedia Taiwan, and I'm connecting from Taipei, Taiwan. And recently I'm doing some Wikidata editing and some meetups in Taiwan. And my favorite cartoon character is probably Snoopy, the dog that has always have some wild dreams that will fantasize us. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Hardy. I'm from Indonesia, and for the cartoon character, I choose Jimmy Neutron, the scientist. Thank you.
Okay, we're at 15 past the hour. Final call for anyone who wants to have a go at the question.
Whakalofalahiatu, kia motolosi and Sophia, malolele everybody. I'm joining in from New Zealand. If I could pick any character, it would have to be Winnie the Pooh. I know it's quite an old classic, but it's something that I grew up with in childhood, and he always had some kind of honey or some kind of food snacks, and it's always been my thing. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, I think with that, thank you so much, everyone, for participating. And if you haven't, no worries. We are going into the next segment of the program, where we get to discuss more. So if we could share the slide, the next part would be breakout exercise. So we have 15 minutes and we'll go into breakout room discussion. And so there are, how many of us here? There are probably about 25 of us here. So we will be split across 3 rooms. So probably eight of us in a room. And what we will be doing is we'll have 15 minutes and we will be discussing how we'll work together to design a scholarship selection and award process So think through collectively as a group, what will be your key steps in your process and what are the key considerations for each stage. So the whole point isn't to go into like the nitty-gritty details, but really just having like a very broad overview of, okay, if I were to design a scholarship selection process and award process, what would it look like? And at the end of the 15 minutes, please remember to assign one representative to share reflections from the group. And with that, we will be assigning you into breakout rooms. Just one quick note, if you require interpretation, please remain in the main room, which is this room. Yeah, and if you require interpretation, but you are accidentally assigned into a breakout room, that means like breakout room 1 or 2, please return to the main room so that you have access to the interpreters. The interpreters will be in the main room. Okay, so give us 1 to 2 minutes while we get sorted. We get you sorted into like different rooms. And
thank you, Jacqueline. I'll just do that. If those who require interpretation can just let me know in the chat or raise your hand so I can identify you whilst I open up the rooms. Okay, so I'm going to open a room and I may be bringing some of you back into the main room because the main room is going to still be one of the rooms we're going to have, okay? So we'll just give you a couple of minutes to settle before you get started. Anthony will be facilitating the second room. I'll be in the first room and Jacqueline will be here in the main room, okay? So I'm opening them now.
okay, I think everyone is sorted into the different rooms.
Yes,
right?
I'm going to go to room 2 then. See
Okay,
you.
sounds good. Thank you. Thanks, Jessica.
I'm back.
Oh, you're back, Johnny.
I got
Great.
invited back.
Oh, really? Okay,
How do I
stay with
deserve
us.
this honor?
Yeah. To make the rooms more balanced, some of you I brought back into the main room. So,
Okay,
a nice
thank
session.
you. Yeah, looks like this is a fun group anyway.
Okay, so we
All
have
right.
about 10 to 12 minutes. We are supposed to kind of think through what would be the key steps when we're designing the process of scholarship award and selection. We do have a working document that we can, I guess, jot ideas and populate, or we can just talk through our ideas, whichever works. So I left the link in the chat. I was wondering if you have seen it. If not, I can put it there again. And once you click on the working document link, you can refer to page 1 and 2. So we are in the main breakout room.
Oh.
Sorry, Jacqueline, could you please share it
テ
again?
キスト
The link.
Yes. Sure.
もらっていません。I have no text.
Hello, Junko. Sorry,
Hello.
Hi. Are you able to access the document in the chat?
I can't see it yet.
Yes.
You
There,
can see?
there it is.
Yeah,
There it
yeah,
is.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes, great. Okay, so what we can do is we can click on the link and then we can jot ideas down. What are our key steps and considerations when we are designing a scholarship selection and award process? One idea could be we can kind of like talk through it and I can quickly jot down notes while we speak so that we can keep track of our conversation. And you don't really have to have like a full, like all the different ideas in mind. I think as we speak, it will become clearer. So please feel free to let me know, to share what comes to your mind. Anyone wants to go first?
Where should we start? What would be the key steps in your process? Is that the beginning?
Yes, correct. So if you were to design a scholarship selection and review process from the beginning, what would be your key steps? Yeah, let's start with key steps.
May I volunteer to begin this?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, I would suggest that we go for a balanced program, so that we don't get too heavy on one topic and we have a good spread of subject matters to cover, so that we can hold everyone's interest and there would be something offered for everyone. So this covers the whole gamut of topics that we have in the Wikimedia world.
Okay, wait, Johnny, are you talking about the event organization or are you
It
specifically
says here you
referring
have
to?
15 minutes to reflect and write as a group. Is that it?
Yes,
Or
correct.
yes, that's right. And
Yes.
there is you have 15 minutes to reflect and write as a group. So
Yes, that's correct.
make sure to
So
select. Yeah.
yes, so the whole point is we are part of the core organizing team to design a scholarship selection and award process. So when you are designing that process, what would be the key steps in that process? Would it be coming up with the eligibility criteria? Would it be setting up the review committee? Like would it be along these lines, or you're thinking of something else?
I think the review committee should, I don't know, I might be getting ahead of myself, but I would think that the review committee should go for like what I mentioned, a balanced mix of topics, for example, for people who could offer something to everyone else in the event. I don't know if this is relevant to what this topic is all about, but that was what came to my to my mind, you know.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't know if
So
this is correct.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure. I think we can put it there, like a balanced program and like representation across Wikimedians. I mean, a representation of Wikimedians from different programs or have different skill sets, right? At the event. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jacqueline, can I add few points to this?
Yes. Of course.
First of all, hello everyone. I am Chinmay. My wiki friends call me Chinu. And I am from South Asia, a regional affiliate. The name is Oya Wikimedians User Group. And for now, at least, I am a primary applicant of the Wiki Women Camp 2023, which is proposed but not confirmed yet. We just have the request on Meta. Considering the topic which we are discussing now, like what should be the basic criteria or primary key points when we decide for some scholarship. So my few points will be, yes, I agree to Johnny's point, like he mentioned, it should be a balanced program should first. Then what we look for next is how the representative can make it impactful, how the participation can make it more impactful. How can the participant go back and spread the words, like spread the learning to more user groups? Is he like, or she or the person itself is a inclusive person, or he is kind of reserved person? We try to identify that also by knowing them from some means. Secondarily, there are few participants, those who have like, several requests to different platforms or maybe events, but they haven't received any scholarship, but they have a good number of like, contribution or addition to the Wikimedia movement. So in terms of the recurring appearance of, or rather like, recurring participation in events, we consider that as a factor as well. Because we cannot identify people like, okay, some person X is representing South Asia, so I cannot take him or her or the person forward going for the all the next events. It will not add any value to the communities or maybe user groups. There should be like, more number of leaders coming forward, or make more number of representative forwards. So that could be a point also. In fact, that is a point also. When we decide for scholarships, we look at their participation history, like if they have participated in any conference before, what are the role they have offered, have they contributed anything to the program team or the organizing team, what are the value addition after the participants got back to their places. So all those things comes into the point. Then the third thing will be like, what are the skill set the participant is willing to offer. When we are coming to a event, we are not just coming to be a participant, we are coming to represent something, and we are expected to take something back also. So that is also another point we consider. Yeah, those three will be the primary key things for us.
Thank you so much. I'm not sure if I have captured all your views. So you mentioned about focusing on the review criteria of Wikimedians representing the community. So while you are open newcomers, I think what you are saying is consider the benefits to the community when deciding who to represent the community.
Exactly,
right? So
Jacqueline, because when we are like, considering somebody to come to the event, we cannot expect as an organizer or and like, core team member that the person will go back and spread some negative words. Like these are the experiences I've had. I mean, obviously feedbacks are always welcome, but having a good representative also important for us, particularly in this open moment. So, and that could be a challenging thing for us as we don't know everybody at their individual level. So what we go for is we look for their community engagement, how they deal with their own circumstances, how they deal with their own people. Because I personally have an experience where like, we were participating in some workshop, and some Wikimedian came to the field participating from some particular region, and the event itself was kindly impacted by that one person himself. Plus, the aftermath was a bit tricky for us to handle, because when, for example, you are joining us from Australia or something, so if you will go back and tell your community or tell user group that I participated in so and so, and this experience is not good, the people are not understanding our thing, which is not true, basically. So what that impact will be on your region itself? It is like, okay, so we are not welcome in a global participation space, or we are not safe, or we are not being heard, nobody is considering our views, which is not right. So choosing a good representative is also important, because that might or might not impact your future members. So that was the point I wanted to. Over to you, Jeff.
Thank you so much. That's very clear. And yeah, I definitely do agree with you and Johnny. I've also captured it in the working document. Added the part about respecting friendly space policy, as well as like character and contribution of the Wikimedian should be considered as well. I'm gonna continue to prompt and open this up to anyone else who has a comment. And also welcome Vansh. So we are doing breakout rooms now, and I'm just gonna send you the scenario question and the working document. Yeah.
Jacqueline, can I share experience from my event from Wiki Nusantara? Yes, thank you, Jacqueline, for this invitation. I think that after we have been organizing some nationwide conference in Indonesia, Wiki Nusantara, and this is our third edition of Wiki Nusantara. I think that regarding the selection, the scholarship, or the something like scholarship process or the whole process of organizing an event, I think that the first one we should consider the budget that we have, because the budget that we have should be reflecting the outcomes of the event, because like we have done last year, we can organize, we can invite it, we could invite around 80 people to the conference, because we have budget from the foundation to organize this event. And I think that this year also we will organize around that number of participants. And also after we have the rough number of participants that we would invite them, I think we should know whether we can see if other people that have not received or awarded the process can be invited as well to the event, for example. And then after that, after we have all number from the participants, we can start with the timeline, I think, because after we have the rough number of how many participants that will be awarded the scholarship, I think we should consider the timeline of the submission, sorry, the call for applicants for the scholarship, and then we will open that for a specific time frame, and then after that we set up a ad hoc committee, the scholarship committee, to select who are the eligible persons to receive the budgets. And then after that, because this year we consider to involve the communities to be in the scholarship committee. So the proposals, the scholarship proposal from the participants will be checked blindly. So the committee will not know who is this proposals, and then they can choose that without knowing their name, so that to reduce bias from the community. And then we set up the community, and then sorry, the committee, and then we announced that once we have you know, like how many people are chosen by the scholarship process. I think that's the rough process for me. I'm not sure that would be beneficial for other events. So thank you, Jacqueline.
Thanks so much, Rahmat. I think that was very helpful in providing us an overview and mapping out like the different workflow from budget to I think you mentioned budget, number of participants, because the budget will determine number of participants, right? And then open scholarship call, set up scholarship committee, yes, and regular updates to the scholarship process, right? People who are part of the process. So having very clear communication. Anyone else would like to go?
Hello.
Hello, Junko.
Hello. ちょっと私は今回はまだよく状況がわからないので、見ています。そして私たちの問題は、多分カンファレンスに参加したい、スカラシップもらっても参加したいという人がいないことじゃないかと思います。はい。ですね。と、表町さん。うん。そう。誰を選ぶかっていうレベルまでいかないんですね。あ、
Maybe for other people in the room, Junko, will you be able to share why in the Japanese community there might be reluctance in joining or taking up travel scholarships to attend more global events? Yeah.
はい。まずとても私たちのコミュニティでは、海外の外国のイベント、コミュニティに興味がないのです。で、外国から来るお知らせは全部財団から来るものだと思っています。それで、例えば、いろんな有志が、いろんな人がやっているっていうことを皆さん知らないです。そして、前も、東アジアの若い人たちが日本の代表って言って、誘ってくれたんですが、韓国と台湾の、少年、少女。で、私は外国に行きたいと言っている、若者を誘ってみました。でも、なんか、反応がない。多分行きたいと思うんですけど、ちょっと信用がないのかなという気はします、まだ。 とても私たちはウィキメディア財団自体と関わっていないので、ちょっと怪しい話だと思われるのかもしれません。そうですね。私自身の信用もないし、外国から来るお知らせ、財団のお知らせっていうのもあまり信用がないし、自分にはカンファレンスで何かやろうとか、何かを変えられるとか、そういうことは考えられないんじゃないかと思います。That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for providing more context. I think everyone's back in the main room. So we can actually kick off the reflections now. So we were broken up into three groups, right? So one in the main room, breakout room 1, breakout room 2. Can I invite someone from the main room to share on the group's behalf?
The main room is with you, Jacqueline?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Let me volunteer myself to report back to the participants here. I will just read the some notes that Jacqueline have been wrote in the docs. So what we have here from everyone from the main room group about the key step and consideration when we are in the core organizing team in an affiliate to design a scholarship selection and award process. Is the first one is about the process, how much budget or number of participants we want to invite to the event, and also we have to remember that who can be invited, who has not been invited in the event before, and who can add value to the event. For example, when we invite someone, we expect them to submit a presentation or something. And also, we would like to see how many people can receive the scholarship. And then after that process has been settled, we open the scholarship call. And after that, we set up the scholarship committee based on our learning before in our event, Wiki Nusantara in Indonesia. We invite the community to be involved in the review process, and also we do blind assessment. The people who are submitting their proposals to get the scholarship, their names is not revealed, would be hidden from the selection committee process. And we also provide the communication, regular communication on the scholarship process to the people, to the community. And also besides on the scholarship process, we also have some consideration. The first one is the representation of balanced program or skill sets across the Wikimedians, and review criteria of Wikimedians representing the community. Are they newcomers or not? And also consider the benefit to the community when the people who are going to the event will be share something to the community, and also choose the right representative from a particular region, user group, and or Wikimedia projects. And the last one is at which capacity the participant is applying for the scholarship. Are they volunteers or staff from organization, Wikimedia organization? I think that's it from my side. Jacqueline, if you or anyone from the same group would like to add something, please do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rahmat. Maybe what we can do is I can invite someone from group 2 to present. But before we go to that, I just want to highlight that you don't have to share everything the group talked about. You can build up on the points that you heard from group 1 and see if there are additional points that your group talked about. You can just fill in those gaps so that we don't have to, I guess, rehash what has been said. So can I invite group 2, like a representative from group 2, and maybe just top 1 or 2 key points as we are slightly behind time now. Yeah. Over to the representative from group 2. Alex.
So that, yep, okay, good. I was going, oh, we want room 1, and then, oh yeah, no, the main room was group 1. Okay, so yeah, I mean, we started out similarly, but I think we had the first step was determining the capacity of the event, so the size of the venue and what proportion of attendees would be getting scholarships or would be funded, as opposed to being self-funded or funded by their employer or their affiliate or something like that. Other than that, it was pretty similar. We had who is going to process the application, so or assess the application and how that was done. And it was important to design the application to capture to sort of to communicate and capture the clear selection criteria, and also diversity. So diversity of in all the ways you want to make that diverse and equitable. It's a good idea to be really transparent about those criteria. As I said, they're part of that application, but any other ways you can publish those and make those available is useful, just so that applicants are clear how the process is being reviewed and how those decisions are being made, and how they can indicate that they are eligible and the ideal candidate. And yeah, it's looking at sort of experience, what they can bring to the conference, and skills field they work in. It was mentioned that it was important to have a backup plan because all sorts of things can happen. People can have personal personal circumstances change, or they might have to work, or they might not be able to get a visa, and so it's important to have a backup plan and a waiting list, I suppose, for people people can be filled at places when someone indicates that they can't attend. And very important to have a travel partner, a travel agent who can book flights and accommodation, whether that's I think we don't want to be doing it ourselves. So it's important to sort of get onto that early, so that someone can who's a professional in that area can make the bookings.
Thank you so much, Alex. And can I invite someone from breakout room 2? That would be the group Anthony was with.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, Anthony. That will be me. So first, thank you for group 3 in the room 2 with a quite good discussion about the scholarship process. So for the step, I think for the highlight of the discussion is about the announce the scholarship itself in the beginning. So before the submission, we need to make sure that people know we have the scholarship. And then about the consideration, of course, we need to consider about the diversity, equal representation. But I think the highlight of this room for the consideration is about how to choose people from the project and choose the kind of select the correct conference, because if some people might apply all scholarship for all conference, so we need to make sure the applicant is best for the conference based on their project in Wikimedia. Yeah. And I think the second one is the consider between the old Wikimedian. No, I'm not saying like senior Wikimedian and the new Wikimedian, because sometimes people have the person have potential, but they recently joined the Wikimedia movement, so they don't have enough project or activity, but the potential to be the leader or even like a good project in the future. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gauzy, for wrapping us up there. So I thank you so much also for brainstorming. I think we have covered quite a bit of ground. And now we are moving on to the next segment where you'll be able to hear from Hen, as well as Wikimedia Australia, about how they went about or how they would organize a session on like selection and review criteria for travel scholarships. And if that's okay, I think, Jessica, do you want to flash the slides and then share? Yeah.
I'll start sharing here.
Okay, over to you.
Okay, so this is a recorded session. We hope it works well, but we'll stop if there's any problems. So just let us know. And I hope you can hear it well on your screens. Just 1 second. I'll start playing this now, right, Jacqueline? Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, we can hear that. No.
Sorry, I'm just getting notification. You can't hear?
Yeah, Jessica, we can't seem to hear the video, but we see the cursor moving.
Let me try once more.
Hi, Hen. Thank you so much for joining us today. Maybe what we can do is we can, if you don't mind, we can.
No, you can't hear it there?
Yeah, it's okay now.
We can. Okay. Just let me know in the chat if something happens.
Start with a self-introduction. And also maybe you can share a little bit more about your journey within the movement before we dive deeper into what we're going to talk about today. So over to you, Hen.
Sure. Thank you, Jacqueline. So nice to meet everyone. Sorry for not being present in the meeting. My name is Hen. I am a lead program officer on the community resources team. I manage the conference and event fund portfolio and some of our other global funding programs. I've been doing that at the foundation for over 4 years, but I've been around the movement for over a decade now. I used to work for 5 years at Wikimedia Israel in the past. So that's where I've done a lot of working on partnerships, financials, project management, organizing local and international events. So I feel that was the one thing that really gave me, really benefit my current position, because I have the affiliate perspective and I was there as a grantee on the other end of it. So I find it very, very useful, and I try to keep that perspective in mind. So the what we're going to talk about in the process was also designed in a way of thinking about smaller affiliates as well, and capacity issues, and what is the best way to process scholarships for events. I want to say that this specific conversation will target scholarship allocation process for events where you're not the organizers. So, such as Wikimania, you want to send a few people from your community and from your affiliate to the event that you're not the one organizing. Because when you are the one organizing and you need to vet on scholarships to attend your own event, the scale is very different, and it probably going to be like a bit more robust. I'm happy to talk to you if you're interested in hosting such an event and to have a different conversation. But this is for events where you just want representative from your community. So I will start by talking about what are the first steps that affiliates should take when wanting to distribute travel scholarships. And we're talking about, flying to a Wikimedia event, to a summit, another community events that you can allocate funds to. One thing to remember, and it's very relevant for Wikimedia is obviously, but for other events, if you're sending multiple people as representative from your affiliates, make sure to align with the organizers on that, so they know that you're sending additional people, self-funded, meaning that you're funding them and not out of their conference grant. And just make sure that they know and are okay with having that cap of people. So first, when I want to send, I want people from my community or affiliates to represent me on Wikimania, the first thing I want to focus on is the logistical aspect of it. How do I assess the budget that I need? So I will start by, what is the budget, regardless of how many scholarships? What is the budget that I have to allocate for this from my annual plan or from my budget? What is the cap number that I have? And then you need to, based on that, you need to assess how much a scholarship will cost. That's how you know how many scholarships you can grant. So what I suggest starting is the very basic. What would you like a scholarship to include? Is it only travel, flight, and accommodation? Or do you want to offer more things like data package, visa costs, ground transportation, maybe COVID test or health insurance, childcare? There are a lot of other things that you can include. This is not a requirement. It's always up to you and what you want to do. But what are the things that you want to cover as part of the scholarship? The very basic is travel and accommodation. The second thing I will consider, and this is more suitable when you have a limited budget, is to also think about partial scholarships. Partial scholarships are also something that is eligible. You can offer a full scholarship to cover everything. You can suggest a partial one saying, hey, we can only fund the accommodation. So if you can get there by yourself, we can only fund the travel, and the rest will be self-covered. So that's another option. Just mentioning a third option, which is online participation. For some events that have an online component, maybe you want to offer scholarship for an online participation, and in that case, it will include things like data packages, right, or food during that time if you want people to be present for the entire conference, or childcare maybe. It's not a necessity, but just another type of scholarship to consider. So once you are clear on what is the budget that you have, how to assess the cost of a scholarship and understanding what you want to include, the next thing you'll do is to understand how much is it to travel and accommodation. I would start by a very basic Google search, using very global websites such as Expedia, Skyscanner, Kayak, Booking, things like that. It sounds very easy. It's what you do on your personal vacation, but that's actually a very good tool to understand what is the average or standard cost for the travel, because you know the destination, you know where people are coming from, but understand the average cost. Some very basic guidelines on that. We obviously prefer economy level travel. Direct flights are preferred, like if you can, under a reasonable budget, have a direct flight instead of a lot of connections, you can prefer that. I know in some places you can get to somewhere by, getting on a train or a bus for 12 hours. I think that's excessive. Like, I think that if you can, and if it's reasonable and you can, and if you have the budget to accommodate a flight, or just take the general approach of be kind to your scholars. Like, if they get a scholarship, it doesn't mean that they need to drive like for 16 hours. So if you can, and it makes sense to get a flight, do that. It's not a necessity to take the cheapest way. It's going to be longer and more exhausting. When you fund a group trip, or a substantial amount of scholarships, you might want to consider using a travel agency. You need to pay them, or sometimes they just charge a certain percent of the flight cost. But it's very recommended if you have a lot of people, they will have all the communication. You can pay them directly. It's a lot easier, but it's up to you, your capacity and your budget. Next thing you should do is to understand how you're going to process the payment. So a few options here. The first one is the affiliate or the chapter to actually book the travel on the behalf of the recipient. So you have the average cost, you communicate with the scholar, you say, hey, I found this flight, that's the hours and the dates. Does it sound okay to you? Does it work for you? Great, I'm gonna book it. And they just get the ticket, the confirmation. You pay directly to the booking service or the travel agency if you use it. And that's the easiest way to do that. Another way to do it is for the recipient themselves to book the flight and to get reimbursed. The way you do it is you set up a benchmark. So you do your research with Google, understanding what is the average cost and reasonable cost. And you got a benchmark, you say, well, our benchmark is, for an example, $500. That is what we find as an average reasonable cost. Hey, recipient, you have this amount of money, book your own flight, you'll be reimbursed for this amount of money. You ask them to fill out, after they book the ticket, they ask them to fill out reimbursement statement, like a very simple one, explaining what the cost was, for what purpose, how did they pay for it, and attach the receipt. You need to keep the receipts. We as a foundation, we don't need to see it. You are being asked to keep the receipts and documentation for 4 years. That's in case the foundation will be audited at one point, and then we'll maybe ask you to present it. But we don't need to see it after the process. That way the scholarship recipient is being reimbursed. That's it. One thing about cash reimbursement, not recommended. In some places, some countries, cash reimbursement is actually forbidden and you cannot do it because of accounting reasons. So please make sure to check with your accountant what is the best way to do it. And if you must have like the cash, what is the limit and how you do that. Now, what happens when a person, wanna extend their time at the destination or wanna add another trip somewhere else, or want to just get a more expensive flight. So this is something that we actually allow, and that's where the benchmark really come in handy. Because if I want to spend 3 more days in the destination for my personal reasons, I want to travel, that's where you as a affiliate can say, hey, you have that $500. That's the benchmark. If the flight is more expensive, it will be out of pocket. So it's up to you. Accommodation, same, like we're funding 3 nights at this hotel. If you want to extend your time there, that's great, but that's on you. And they're free to do it as long as you are clear with what you're covering for how long and what cost. So that's more of the logistics that we covered. But how do you determine what are the eligibility criteria and how to prioritize scholarship recipients? So the first thing that you should do is to form a scholarship committee. Now, sometimes a committee sounds like something a bit too robust. So I want to say small affiliates, or maybe some that doesn't sound like a huge group of people, just 3-4 people. That's okay. You don't have to have like a huge committee, but just have a rationale for who is making the decision. It can be a panel. It can be like 2-3 people. It can be a whole committee, right? But have a rationale for who is standing there and who is making a decision. It could be a paid staff. It can be a team member. It can be a community member. It can be a combination of them, ideally. And be clear and transparent with who is making the decisions on that. Ideally, review the application after everyone submitted. So, sometimes we're tempted, we already received a few applications, let's go ahead and review those and review the others as they come. I actually don't suggest doing that. I suggest waiting until the submission ends. So you're not biased, you have everything, all the submissions in one place. You understand, you better prioritize that way, right? Okay, so you now need to have clear eligibility criteria. Who are the people that we want to fund? Who are the people who we want to represent us there? What kind of skills, experience do they have? How do we ensure diversity within that group? How do we ensure the conference that they're going to will be beneficial to them, to the community they're coming from? What kind of people do we want to support there? What kind of gaps do we want to improve or address when sending people? So one thing to keep in mind is the target audience, right? If the event is a very technical event, then obviously I need to send people with technical skills. If it's more of a community event, then I can be more flexible. If it's a very targeted audience, like women only event or education, so you need the right audience to do that. So that's the first thing that you consider on the eligibility criteria, like the areas of work and interest. Think about what is the level of experience, wiki experience that they need. Again, if it's a hackathon, you need a certain level, like minimum level of expertise. If it's something else, understand what kind of capacities and skill you need those people to have. Include things like diversity criteria, where they're coming from, the country of origin, the gender, underrepresented communities. Try your best to have diversity criteria and to choose people based on a very diverse set of standards. Having said that about skills and expertise, I do want to say something that I found very important from my experience is about newcomers. Sometimes we're kind of, especially for Wikimedia, we're kind of reluctant to send very newcomers or new contributors in our community. And I actually want to tell you, don't be so scared of that, and consider newcomers as eligible audience for scholarships. Because when you, and I'm not talking about, really newcomers that just joined the affiliate like 2 weeks ago, but I'm talking about people who've making their first step into the Wikiverse, actually sometimes having those kind of people at our event. That's the first time they experience that, being a part of such a big thing. They're not aware of the magnitude of the Wikiverse. They're not aware of how many people are so invested and motivated and committed to the thing. And actually sometimes sending newcomers can be very, very, very motivating for them. They can come back to their community far more energized and motivated and invested in the goal of Wikimedia. So consider that. I found it very useful when we used to send the Wikimedia Israel newcomers. It really paid off. They stayed as very, very important contributors moving forward. I'm going to share a resource to recommended selection criteria that you can use that include the things that we've talked about. You can adjust and modify it as you need and for your context, but this will be available for you. And the next thing to consider is, what do you expect the recipients to do? Do you expect them to send, send a report? Do you expect them to present something? Do you expect them to submit a program submission in return for their scholarship? And I intentionally using that. Just set up the expectations of what are they committing to when receiving a scholarship. One thing I'll say is that I personally do not recommend tying program submission or speaking in front of an audience or presenting something with a scholarship. I don't think it's necessary for each scholarship recipient to present. Not all of us are great at speaking in front of an audience. Not all of us are happy to do it. It doesn't mean that we don't have a place there. And as an affiliate, you don't necessarily want, representatives that do not feel comfortable with that position, but you do want them in the event itself. Just doing a time check here. Jacqueline, how are we doing?
Yeah, I think we're doing well.
Okay, great. Okay, that's it. About the report out or things like that, I want to say, ask what you really need. I don't believe in asking recipients to, create a training or to submit a huge report if you don't really need it. That's okay to say, hey, we want you there. We want to make sure you've been there. So maybe just write a short report out to the community, but just ask what you will really benefit from. Next thing you'll do is to actually start the process, right? So you start with communicating. We have this event. We want to send a few people. We have the budget. We're going to have a scholarship process, and this is how it goes. You tell them like who will make the decisions, what's the timeline. That's the form that you need to fill out, and you start working on the form itself. And I will also link another resource for a suggested application form. I strongly suggest opening it with a kind of disclaimer on the data that you're collecting, that the data that you're collecting will only be seen and will serve only the decision makers, will not be accessible to everyone. Make sure to erase the data that you don't need after the process will end. Make sure to not ask for things that you don't really need. If you don't need the personal address of that person, if you don't really need their, phone number, don't ask for it. Ask only the things that you really want to know and you really want to need, especially only during the screening process. Maybe later when you decide to give that person a scholarship, you need more data. But if you don't need their passport details now, don't ask for it. Okay, so each committee or panel or panel of decision makers should have one point of contact, like a head of the committee or someone to manage the process. They gather all the information and data from the application that people are filling out, compile it to a spreadsheet to make it easier on the committee to review. Include there for the committee, again, only the most relevant pieces of information that they need. And create the review framework document. Again, linked, I will make sure the research will be, that the resource will be available for you. You can modify it, you can change it. Specifically, the one I'm going to share as a review framework for the committee is more focused on technical event. So you might want to change, the areas of interest or to modify it to your event. What is the timeline for, and one more thing, for the review framework, I suggest using guiding question for the committee members, right? Guiding question. Do you think the experience this person has aligned with the goals and objective for the event? How do you think we as a community will benefit from it? How do you rate the application? Is it clear? Do you need more information? Those kind of questions, and ask them to rate it. And then at the end, you have like a very clear rating. I actually encourage you to use like a numeric rating. That way it's easier to make the decision at the end. And on the document, you'll see like the different methods and how to do it. What is the timeline that you need? So basically as soon as possible, right? Especially think of if you have any limitations, if you need to take into consideration things like visa issue, if they need visa to get to that place, so allow more time in advance. It takes time. Visa issue is a burden. A good time to also tell you that it's a good idea to have a waiting list, because many times people do not get visas or their travel arrangement doesn't really work. So have a waiting list. You can even tell people, hey, you're currently on the waiting list and we'll reach out if you have another spot. But allow enough time for international travel arrangements. You will need, only for the travel booking and arrangements, you will need between 4 to 8 weeks, depending on if it's domestic or international, if it's regional, how complicated it is. So that's what you need for the booking arrangement. So take a few more weeks in advance to start the process. What happens after decisions are made? So after you as a committee agree on the selected applicants, informed and confirm with the scholars that they're still interested, they can still attend. What are the expectations? What are they committing to? And again, have a waiting list in case for some it won't work. If it's a large group of scholarship recipients, you can later on publish some statistics or data about how many people you funded, from what kind of regions, from what kind of interest areas. So you'll have like something to share with the rest of the community. Make sure to also notify the ones that you're rejecting or the ones that are on the waiting list. If I submit an application, even if I haven't received it, I expect to get informed, someone to reach out and tell me if I should wait any longer or not. So please make sure to inform the ones that you're rejecting as well. It's always nice to tell them why, but the minimum required is to let them know. I think that's about it. There's one thing that I do want to check back specifically for Wikimedia. Sometimes the foundation itself has, and the organizing team for Wikimedia has their own process for scholarships. Sometimes they can send the next in line on their list. to the specific communities. I remember that is a practice that we've done when I worked with Wikimedia Israel. We sometimes just got the next in line on the waiting list from the foundation, and those will be the people that we use to fund. You don't have to follow that process, just another suggestion. What else, Jacqueline? Do you have any?
Okay, thank you, everybody. I know it's harder to watch a video recording, so thanks for your patience. I hope that was very detailed and useful. Over to you, Jacqueline.
Thanks, Jessica. Okay, so we'll just do a quick recap of what Hen has shared. Very basic steps of the process: determine the budget, access the scholarship cost, consult and decide on a payment method, form the scholarship committee panel and review framework, identify clear and diverse eligibility criteria, communicate regularly and well, set up expectations on the deliverables and report out to the community. And with that, I hand it over to Jessica to introduce Wikimedia Australia, and over to you, Jessica.
Thank you. Well, we have now our star presenters. Thank you so much for the work you've put into this. Prue Mitchell, I think most of you know her from Wikimedia Australia, and Ngada from Wikimania, many years of Wikimania experience, and also part of the Wikimedia Australia. And they're coming to share what they've learned, the great things that they've learned from what's worked well, and also the things they've learned that they would do differently if they went back. So over to you. And just a reminder that in our docs, there's a space to ask questions, and we will be opening up the floor for comments, questions, sharing your own experiences as well once their presentation has finished. Over to you two. I can share my screen if that's okay with you, Prue and Nara.
Yep, that's perfectly fine. Looks like I've jumped in ahead of Prue. Prue, did you want to start? You want me to?
That's your slide, the first one.
Okay. When we look at some of the lessons learned when you're setting up a scholarship process, the first thing you want to do is consider the event's theme. So if we're talking Wikimania, this year it's collaboration, diversity, and future. And that helps you to decide what your criteria is, so what you're looking from people. And then once you've got your theme and you understand the criteria, your expectations of people, then you can write your questions so that it's a three-step process. Your questions become the last thing because those are what you need to get the data from. So you've got two sets of questions. There are those where you just need physical data, whether it's locations and addresses when you're including travel, some of the diversity questions, things that aren't necessarily part of the full assessment. And then you've got a series of questions that are there for assessment. So if you're to look at the Wikimania process this year, there was about 20 questions asked, but only the last 3 really had an impact on how we assess your application. First one is asking you about your knowledge of the movement. Then we start looking at what you've done. Now, we recognise that a newcomer and someone with 15 years experience are going to have a totally different set of skills and can show a lot more contributions and activity and stuff. So what we ask is that we look at what you've done in the last 12 months, because we want the most active people, and we don't want people riding on the same project that they've run for the last 10 years. Those are great projects, but unless something new or significant has happened to it, it becomes a lot easier for them to just reorganize and resubmit the same answers every year. And then it's about communicating out what the questions are so people can understand them. They can think about them. So you try to make them all available before they get to the fall. Even then, if you take this year's Wikimania, we had 3,800 applications. When we went through it all, it was actually only 1,200 applications. The other 2,600 applications were people that were just testing the waters, looking at the questions, you know, trying bits and pieces, doing different answers, putting different information in. And that takes a lot of work, or that adds a lot of work to your scholarship committee, which you really don't want to do. Obviously, the smaller the number, the smaller you're going to get with those responses as well. So try to communicate, get your questions out there, encourage people to look at them, read them, and think about them before they fill in the application form. Another part of that is making sure there's support available so that if they've got questions about the application, if they want some extra information or want to know, will this impact my application, you've got someone that can answer it. And that's part of that communication, making sure, having office hours, talking to people, having an email address, having a contact point that everyone can go back to, and making sure that everything question that comes in is responded to very quickly. Sometimes it may take a day or two to get an answer, but you still need to respond to them and make sure that they're aware. And as you get closer to the deadline, you've got to increase that response time. But hopefully you've already had all of those questions and you can give this, you reuse the same answers over and over again for each of them that come in. If one answer is questions being asked a lot, you can include a fact statement or a fact page that'll fill in some of those blanks for people. And then once you've gone through all of the process, you've got to find ways of making the assessment fair. So you have that disparity between experience and newcomers. You've got to look at diversity. You've got to look at all of your options. You've got to make sure that everyone's got an equal opportunity. I did hear someone say in one of the questions about hiding the name of the person, and it's like you can't do an application or assess someone without knowing who they are and what they've done and being able to verify it. So you want to be able to check back and encourage it. You also got to look at how people answer questions. Now, for some people, writing a beautiful story comes really easy. And for a lot of Wikimedians, that's the case. But there are also a lot of skill sets out there where people aren't as great at writing, but are amazing photographers or really good at creating a tool of some kind, but they can't express that in written words. If they can give you a link, let the link speak and encourage the use of links over the written documentation, because it becomes very difficult and to assess the differences in people. So you've got to find ways to make sure that everyone gets a fair chance at it. Yeah. I'll hand over to Prue for the next slide.
Thanks, Nangara, and thanks everyone. You've been sitting, listening for a very long time. I'll just answer a few things about what, tips really, and there are some good resources that will come out next week. But to build on what Nangara said, the shared email inbox, if you've got an office or staff, that's fine. But if it's volunteers, real life happens, and it really does need more than one person to be seeing the messages. So if you've got some way of sharing an inbox, it means hopefully someone will get an answer more quickly, because that isn't a problem. The other big thing is time, and just to do this as early as possible in the process. And we talked in our session about the cycles. So, usually you might be putting in a grant application now for 2024, and you don't know what conferences are happening in 2024, or where they are and how much they'll cost and how many people. So it's quite difficult to get that happening. But if there are visas and good prices on a travel and accommodation, then time is a big issue. So I think if you want to have a transparent process, and I think that's what Gideon was saying at the end about fairness, that's really the most important thing. Making sure people who might be interested and are eligible to attend know about the scholarship and know about it in plenty of time. So at Wikimedia Australia, one of our scholarships, we only had time for 2 weeks between when we announced it and when it closed. And that's just not fair for people who don't read the newsletter, or don't look on Wiki or don't look on social media. You have to hit all of the different promotional channels that you've got. And I guess the other fairness criteria is getting the diversity and getting new people. And honestly, the only way to do that is probably to talk and invite them to apply. So it shouldn't be a member of the scholarship committee. They shouldn't approach people, but other people in your affiliate should go and say, we need equal male and female, binary, non-binary applicants. We need people from different language groups, but we need somebody who works on a Wikisource project, not just on Wikipedia or Wikidata. So if you've decided that you've got categories of scholarships, then you will have to work hard to make sure you've got people to actually be applying that meet those criteria. So yes, the possible categories are gender, language, project, cultural, ethnic group, and also geographic, not just the people from the cities, because it's cheaper to fly from a main airport, but think about people who are also more isolated and can't get to activities as easily. One thing, and I haven't talked about this with Nangara, but it just occurred to me, if you have somebody and you're targeting a particular language group or cultural group, maybe the best thing is to go to that community and say, look, there is one scholarship. How would you go about selecting somebody? And invite that community to develop a process for selecting a representative. In a way, that's what we did for ECAP. We said that the affiliate level or the staff level, that they should make that decision, because they would have a lot more knowledge than we did as a scholarship committee. But you have to trust them then to have all the transparency and the fairness. This is very practical stuff, and I think Hen already talked about a lot of it, but separating the data into application data and logistical travel data, which you only need for the people who are actually selected, or maybe the shortlist. The problem is the different platforms. So there is no Wikimedia platform where we can register for events or invite scholarships that is not open. So, and they all require logins. So that's, you know, something to think about, trying to protect people from having to use multiple platforms. We use Google Forms for the initial one, just to get the information quickly from people. And then we went to Eventbrite, which we felt was a little bit more secure and offered other features around the personal data. But for identity data, because we do sometimes have to, we had to move visa information and passports around, then that needs to be direct email to email, not stored in some other location. So that's all the privacy. Oh, financial record keeping. I'd be happy. I was the treasurer for the last couple of years. I would be happy to share details on this, but in principle, whatever system you use for your grant management, whether if that's a spreadsheet or we use Xero, you just need to have a cost code so you can clearly identify what is the scholarship, and you also need some link to where you save all the invoices. So there's quite a bit of practicality, but it will be different in different countries. There are different rules. For instance, you know, we must have a tax invoice if the reimbursement is over $82 Australian, for instance. The other thing we found is you want to be flexible for people, because it's an investment for the person as well as the financial costs of the scholarship. They're putting a lot of time in to come to, you know, fly to another country. So you want to let them add something else on, do something else on the way. But every time you make a change from what you set out at the beginning, then that adds extra work for the scholarship committee or whoever is managing the process. So just keep that in mind and be clear upfront every little rule that you can possibly think of. We have some policies, the travel policy and scholarships policy. You'll get the links to those. They might be helpful for you as well. Perhaps what I could do is go through the what can go wrong. I don't like finishing on the negative, but this is what we found. You could start to realise that your budget is going to go over, which is a very scary thing. Or you might even get to the point where so many people couldn't come, or you got your flights more cheaply and you're going to be underspent. So you just need to talk to your grant person very early if you see this issue. Perhaps don't accept all scholarships that you think you can give out. Hold some back on your wait list until you know more about the actual costs of the highest priority group to come. And have your wait list, have people on there who can take up a place at the very last minute. You know, just because it's better that than not be able to have somebody take the place. The other issue we have is if the participant that you select on the scholarship is not accepted by the community. Now, that's not that they're on a blacklist, because, you know, that you should know those people who can't come. But people apply for scholarships. The scholarship committee makes the best decision they can, and then things can happen afterwards where people start getting niggly and upset about who's coming. So again, it needs a lot of transparency about the process, and it's important to try and have a direct communication with the people making the complaints as quickly as you can to head off too much angst about it all. You know, there's very different when you're in person as opposed to what's acceptable online. So people will often get into quite a heated conversation online, but when you're going to have people physically in a room together, you need to hose down any of that kind of thing that will make people uncomfortable. And the other problem is when the scholarship recipient can't come at the last minute. So just have something in mind. Sickness, there is travel insurance, so there's some good information on the travel policy for the foundation. And so everyone should have travel insurance. So use that if you can to get a claim or at least get a credit on any flights, so they could be used for a future event. We ended up with rooms because people didn't have visas, and so we were able to transfer those to a local, otherwise they would have gone to waste. And I think the local people got something out of actually living in and having breakfast with people and not travelling to outer suburbs. The other reason is the visa and the passport issue. So ask about the passport and the visa at the application stage so that people get started on getting their passport. And if we didn't know how somebody from Indonesia would apply for a passport, so you probably need to mentor people within the same country. So make sure you link someone from the Philippines with someone from the Philippines so they can both get their passport process and visa process sorted out. Also, I think we would make a deadline 2 to 4 weeks before and say, if you don't have a visa by now, we're going to have to go to the next person on the list, because it's, otherwise you're left with people who things are paid for and they can't get there. The other thing was people who just don't show up, like they have a scholarship and they withdraw after you've already spent the money. And there is a policy about that says they're ineligible for future scholarships. So unfortunately that does happen. We must be getting close to time, Jessica. Sorry, I might finish off there and take questions, I think.
Thank you so much, Prue and Gara. It was wonderful to hear your lessons learned and very, very practical. So I'd like to open the floor for any questions. We have about 10 minutes for questions or comments. If your experience has been different or anything you would like to add. There's a lot of experienced Wikimedians on the call, so feel free to share. You can raise your hand or just let us know in the chat if you want to speak.
One thing Hen mentioned was about whether you pay, whether people send their travel arrangements to the conference team to organise or travel agent, or whether they book it themselves and ask for a reimbursement. Different people have different, some people could not afford to pay for it themselves. They didn't have a credit card, or they just didn't have that money to do that up front. But other people prefer not to have all the middle people. So, you have to give your flights to one person who translates them for the travel agent. The travel agent makes decisions online and then it comes back down. It's like whispers, and you get problems happening at every step. And so personally, I quite like it if I can book my own, but if you're going to do that, you need to say to the person, this is the maximum amount that we will fund on the scholarship. And I think if people are doing their own extra bookings and doing extra things, that's the easiest way to work it. I don't know how you think about that, whether that would work for other, especially small affiliates. If you don't have a travel agent or you don't have a finance person that's paid. Dates. Is there a usual ideal way of finalising dates? Does that mean the date to hold the conference? Because there's a lot of questions that go into that about venues and convenient dates for the organising team and that kind of thing. But if it means setting the timeline in the lead up to the conference, then I think that would be a good idea to have a spreadsheet.
Definitely have a spreadsheet with dates and setting up your timeline. Once you've chosen the date of the conference, work backwards. So you go, okay, this is the conference here. This is the absolute last date that we can organise and know that people can travel. This is the date where the latest they've got to get their visa application in. So, and those dates dictate then how quickly you've got to finish your scholarship process, when you can start it, and when you've got to let everyone know by, and all of those steps. So you start at the back, so you start with your conference and you work backwards to give yourself as much time and know when every critical point's going to be hit. Butcher's got his hand up.
Okay. For the benefit of the conversation, actually, the best place you would know if there is a upcoming conference is simply going to the grant application of the proponent affiliate or organization. So usually the conference grants team, which is composed of HEN and some community members, usually have a timeline. So they for instance, if the event will happen on around the spring or second quarter of 2024, the deadline of applications is September 2023. So usually in September 2023, you would be able to know the definite schedule of the conferences that will happen around that date. But there are cases that proponents or applicants send their dates 8 months or even 10 months ahead of the planned conference. So always check the date on that link on the grants page of the Wikimedia Foundation's conference team on the dates. But the strongest indication or sure dates are 6 months before the conference.
Thank you for that, Butch. Shinu, did you want to say something, clarify anything about your question? I saw you opened your mic.
Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, Nandara and Butch. So my question was about the first point, which Drew addressed getting over budget and under budget. That could be a hazard upcoming. So my question was related to that point. Like usually, how do we identify like what time of the year in that region, like the region we are planning to have the event hosted or the conference hosted? So my question was about that. So how do we usually process that thing? But I think everybody answered that. So I have my answer. Thank you. Thank you, Prue. Thank you, Butch. Thank you, Nangara.
Yes, we were talking in our breakout room earlier, the problem with the cycles of funding. And I think there are so many parts around this, because then the grants committee needs time to review the grant application for the conference. If it's a conference grant, if it's an affiliate for a conference in your own country, then maybe it just comes under your annual grant. And so you need to be in the correct financial year, really. Sometimes if it's too close to the beginning of a grant, then all the money is actually going to come out of the one beforehand. So yes, timing is a big question, you know.
Anybody else that'd like to ask a question or bring in their own experience. Remember, you can also do so in Mandarin or Japanese.
Another thing to consider is part and full scholarships. And sometimes there are people who can afford to part fund, and that will let you have more scholarship places. But that is very hard. You know, we ask people, how much do you need to attend this conference? And that's a very personalised thing, which is hard to assess.
Yeah.
There is. Sorry, Butch, go for it.
Sorry. Another thing that I would like to share, probably this is the first time that I will tell this audience. If you're planning a conference, then you're balancing, you're hosting a conference, and then you're balancing the eligibility of the applicants. Please consider the lowest cost as well. For instance, if the person will be coming far away to that conference, then that will be, you will need to get the best person on that particular group. And then if the person is closer to the venue or at the least possible cost, probably you will be able to get one or two persons equivalent of that. I'm sorry, additional one or two persons equivalent from that one person that you will getting far away. One example that I have experienced is when we're planning the 2019 ESIAP summit. We pool all the applicants from Australia and New Zealand in one pool, and then we get the best person from there. However, for the applicants coming from the shorter distance like Thailand and Malaysia, at least for Malaysia alone, we were able to get three eligible participants, because the cost of travel from Kuala Lumpur to Bangkok is relatively cheap. So, so you may need to consider that as well when you're choosing applicants or participants in a conference.
Ngara, did you want to add something to that? Or you wanted to say something?
No, that's okay. We've got a couple of questions in the chat that need answering, I suppose. Is it Shinu asked about how is it a challenge to deal with requests to shift dates forward or backwards? And for travel, you can make a lot of adjustments fairly easy. Event dates, once you're committed to an event, it's very hard to shift the dates, because you've got venues, you've got catering, you've got accommodation, you've got travel and visa limits. It becomes very complicated, and sometimes once you've got that date, you've just got to commit to it. If someone can't get there, well, look for alternative ways to get them in the room, which is your video connections or pre-recorded, as we saw with Hen not long ago in this. Okay, two more new ones. Okay.
There's a question around when does the financial year start in Australia? In Japan, it's
ours is July to June. So the new financial year starts on the 1st of July, ends on the 30th of June.
And that coincides with our grant cycle, so that's good. But it doesn't coincide with our committee. So we can't hold our annual meeting until we've had our previous financial year finalised. So the earliest is really August. And so the new committee comes in, and then the first thing they have to do is do a conference in October or November. So there's never an ideal cycle, really. I don't know, what do other countries do? Indonesia, do you have conferences?
By the way, for the benefit of everyone, the committee that they're referring to is their executive committee, or for other countries, they call it board of trustees.
Yeah, and what you hope for in all of those is you don't have a big turnover of the whole board or the whole committee in the same year, because that can really set you back a couple of years in your planning and processes.
Fantastic. Okay, so we have just 3 minutes before we close. Please feel free to use the document to ask any questions or comments, and we'll make sure that Prue and Ginara have access to maybe answer and address them there after the session. Sometimes it takes some time to take in all the information, and then you remember a few weeks afterwards that you have a question. So we're going to use this document to continue to create these shared resources. So I want to share, Butch, I see you have a hand up. Not sure if it's an old hand or a new hand.
Yeah, just a quick a reminder for everyone who have planning to set a budget. If you're planning to set a budget for travel or assistance on travel, please, as mentioned earlier, please always coordinate with the organizer of the conference. If you're planning to fund participants going to Wikimedia 2024, you always need to coordinate with the CEE organizing committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Butch. So we've decided to do this shared toolkit, and the idea is that we can crowdsource resources together. So Hen already mentioned several resources that she is going to share, and also Wikimedia Australia are going to add some resources. So what we would like you to do after the session in the next few weeks, and Jacqueline will be emailing you about this, but so you know it's here in our document, is for each one of the steps that we've talked about. So we've had determine the budget, talk about the scholarship committee and the review framework, etc. We have linked in this first column some existing resources. Here you'll be able to see the links. And we will continue to add some links after the session. What we would like you to do to help us build this toolkit is two things. One is look through the resources that exist, look through the guidelines, the examples, the formats, and think of anything that might be missing. So any information you think is key and is not there, and just write it down for us. For example, I would like another example of a review framework or a scoring card for candidates. Or I would like an example, a template of a budget, for example. That's the first thing. So review the resources that are there and add any comments about things that you think are missing and that would be useful for you. The second exercise is to add things that you have. You all have experience as well, and you may have an example that you also want to share with others, right? So you can link in the example there. You can tell us if that example can be public or you just want to keep it internal. So you can share it in whatever format. It can be a link to a page. It can be a link to a document, to a spreadsheet. And you can do so in any language as well. We will offer the translation support for the material that you share. Any questions? This is going to be our shared toolkit, and hopefully not only for the region, but we can also share it with Wikimedians in other regions, and it can be the ECAP-led toolkit for event scholarship organizing. Any questions about this? No? Do you like the idea? You can put a thumbs up or a... Are you all willing to work on this together? I see a thumbs up from Anthony, Butch, Shino, fantastic. Okay. And the last thing we wanted to do is for you to give us your feedback on this session. So if you can just go to this Mentimeter link, we have 3 questions there. So if you can answer the questions now before we end the session, that would be great. And we can share what some people are thinking. Please, they're anonymous answers. So give us, your honest feedback of what worked and what you would like to see in the future. And I'll stop sharing here. Butch, your hand is up.
Just a question, Jessica. Is this particular session also being conducted in other regions?
No, it was developed for the ECAP region based on some affiliates expressing this interest.
I see. Because this particular session is very useful to other regions who are also planning their annual budgets, and probably the best lessons that we done on this session probably can be best applied on all other regions, so that the organizers of future conferences would have a proper sync on what is being done in every region.
Yeah, thank you, Butch, for that feedback. So we'd love to do it in other regions, and I think also share this material so that others can learn from what we've already done today. Okay, so I'm seeing some answers from the Mentimeter. If you have problems with the link, just let me know, and I will be able to share my screen with some of those answers. Okay, we're 5 answers in. I'll be sharing some of the results here. People saying that the information is valuable. Tips and resources. Also, what can go wrong? Thanks for sharing that. The issue about privacy and hiding names from applicants initially. Eligibility information. There's a lot to be learned in organizing a big event. That's a big learning from today. That the process can be just as important than the ethics. I'll wait for a few more answers to come in. Yeah, for those who have to drop off, I'm sorry, we're just 6 minutes over. You can respond to the Mentimeter afterwards. Your feedback will be really important to us. And remember to add to the toolkit in the next couple of weeks. Considerations for budgeting is a lesson learned. Unforeseen circumstances. So I think that's very useful, Prue, that you shared that. Knowing the process and infrastructure of scholarship design and making the whole process. So I think a lot of the practical learnings were important for people. I'm going to go and see if we have some responses for the second question. How will you be applying this learning? Oh, seems like we haven't got responses in yet. Okay. So please take your time to fill out the 3 questions. We'll also like to know how you're going to apply this learning and when, so that we can also best support you afterwards. And I will end here wanting to thank Wikimedia Australia, Prue, and Ngara. Thank you so much for your time. To Hen, who is put a lot of work into pre-recording, and to my colleagues Anthony, Jacqueline, thank you so much for hosting this session, and always to our interpreters that do a large amount of work. Thank you so much. And over to you, Jacqueline, if you want to close us off, or Anthony.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it and hope it has been a useful learning session. Anthony, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I would like to thank the ECF community for attending this session and making it a lively one. Thank you.